If you run a hotel, this is probably the one question that keeps you up at night. How much do our guests really love us? You see them check out, they're smiling, everything seems great, but are you sure? It's a huge question. So let's dive in and see if we can find a way to get a real answer.
You know the scene. At the front desk, everything looks fantastic. You're saying smiles, you're hearing polite thank yous. It feels good. But then a few days later, you check the reviews online, and the story is, well, it's different. Those reviews are just okay, lukewarm. They just don't match the happy vibe you felt in the lobby. And that disconnect, it's not just common, it's incredibly frustrating for any hotel manager.
And this right here, this is the core of the problem. Your internal perception, what you and your team see day to day, is that everything's fine. But the external reality, what potential guests see when they're deciding where to book, tells them something's a little off. This isn't just a small communication issue. We're talking about a real perception gap that can seriously impact your business. Okay, so let's get right to it. What is this blind spot actually costing you? Because believe me, when you don't have a clear read on how your guests really feel, it shows up on your P&L statement, whether you see it there or not.
Think about it. Without a clear, structured way to measure what guests are thinking, you're pretty much flying blind. You're just assuming you know what they want. You only find out there's a real problem after a bad review goes public, and by then, well, the damage is done. You're always one step behind, putting out fires instead of proactively building an experience that people are actually excited about.
And what's so wild is how we treat our data. As hotel managers, we live and die by our numbers, right? Occupancy, RevPAR, ADR, we track those obsessively. But the one thing that actually drives all of those metrics, real, genuine guest loyalty, is often just left to a gut feeling.
But here's the good news. Closing this gap, it doesn't mean you need some complicated, expensive new system. The solution is actually surprisingly simple. It really all boils down to asking one single, powerful question. And this is it. This is the question. It cuts through all the fluff. See, it doesn't ask about the thread count of the sheets or the speed of the Wi-Fi. It asks about trust. It's asking a guest, was your stay so good that you'd be willing to put your own reputation on the line and recommend us to people you actually care about? That's a whole different level. This simple question is the foundation of something called the Net Promoter Score, or NPS for short. It's an incredibly powerful metric because it's not just measuring how satisfied someone was. It's measuring their loyalty. A recommendation is a direct measure of trust. And trust, well, that's the ultimate sign of a genuinely happy guest. So the magic here is in understanding what the answers to this question really mean. Based on the number they give you, every single guest falls into one of three very different groups. Let's break down who they are. Okay, so on that 0 to 10 scale, anyone who gives you a 9 or a 10, they're your promoters. These are your champions, your biggest fans. They're coming back and they're telling their friends to come too. Now, anyone who gives you a 7 or an 8, they're passives. They're fine. They were satisfied, but they're not loyal. A good deal from your competitor could easily tempt them away. And then there's everyone who scores you from 0 to 6. These are your detractors. These are unhappy guests, and they're a huge risk for leaving those negative online reviews. Figuring out your final score is incredibly easy. You just take the percentage of your promoters, your biggest fans, and subtract the percentage of your detractors. That's it. The passives in the middle, they don't count in the main calculation. So if 60% of your guests are promoters and 20% are detractors, your net promoter score is a very healthy plus 40. It's one clear number that tells you exactly where you stand with your guests.
Okay, look, having a score is great, but a number by itself doesn't do anything. The real power is in what you do with it. So let's look at how this one number can transform into real business impact and much smarter decisions for your hotel.
This chart really tells the whole story. Before tracking NPS, you're just guessing based on those checkout smiles and getting blindsided by bad reviews. But after, you have a clear, consistent signal. You start spotting problems before they end up online. You go from reacting and making guesses to making truly informed decisions that actually improve your guest's experience. And why is this so critical? Because a higher NPS score isn't just some vanity metric to feel good about. It's directly tied to the things every single hotel owner cares about. More loyal guests who keep coming back, more powerful word-of-mouth marketing, and, at the end of the day, real, sustainable growth in your revenue and profitability. Now, maybe the best part of all this is that you don't need a huge team or a fancy new software platform to get going. You can actually get a basic NPS system up and running this week. It's a really simple, straightforward plan. Seriously, Here's all it takes. 1. Send a simple email or text after checkout with that one key question. 2. Keep a simple spreadsheet to log the scores. 3. Once a month, get your team together and look for patterns. What are your promoters raving about? And what's making your detractors so unhappy? And 4, and this is the most important step, act on what you learn. Reach out to those unhappy guests. Find out how you can make things right.
So I'll just leave you with this to think about. What would it mean for your hotel, for your team, for your bottom line if you could finally get ahead of the story? If you could know exactly how your guests feel in real time and fix problems before they ever become a public review?
Because at the end of the day, that's what it all comes down to. The smiles are nice, for sure, but the real measure of success, the true test, is whether someone is willing to recommend you. That's a signal that you haven't just met their expectations, you've created a true fan. And that, right there, is how you build a hotel business that lasts.